If hospitals are asking doctors and patients to don headsets and embrace virtual reality, who's next? Hi, I'm Heidi Rataj, and today I have Alan Cook, Tony DeMarinis, and Caitlin Kutzer with me from Deloitte's Digital Reality Practice. Alan, Tony, Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Businesses are jumping into virtual reality and augmented reality, so shifting productivity, collaboration, and workflow. Alan, give us a brief history of the shift. How did we get here?
This is the fourth large shift that has happened in technology and the way that we interact with technology and the way that we use it and the data that we derive from it. So the first big shift was the move from mainframes to PCs. And this allowed us to really start to use technology for our own personal use. It no longer was just a work tool. It was one of the ones that we were able to start investing our own time, putting our own information into it, and start interacting on a personal level. The next big shift was actually the move to the World Wide Web. And so instead of just having our own data and our own information, we had access to the world. And obviously, as that grew, more and more applications were developed, more and more websites, greater and greater opportunities for us to interact were born. Also, just the way that we interacted with the technology became easier. The big shift beyond that was then mobile, and suddenly we weren't now locked to our desktop. We could actually take the data with us, we could take our information with us, and again, it led to a huge growth in new applications, new way for us to start to use the data, develop new tools. And again, at this point, we started to use the swipe, the pinch, the expand, a much more natural way to interface with the technology. This next shift is going to be to digital reality, so all things VR, AR, MR, 360, and immersive. And as we move into this, again, it's going to be one of these giant leaps forward that will help us to use the technology more, use the technology in a more natural and intuitive way, and again, it's going to drive a huge growth in new applications and new ways for us to use and develop technology and the applications and the data within it.
Love that you referenced the history, right? Just using swipe and pinch and how we have accepted it so quickly. I mean, I still love the mouse, so I'm kind of old school that way. Tony, turning it over to you, thinking about design and creating a natural environment out of something that is basically unnatural. With a background in design and development capability, how do you approach VR and AR from a design perspective?
I think ultimately the fidelity and richness of the experiences that can be provided by AR, VR are what could be the fundamental shift in immersive experience. I've been in immersive design for 25 years or so, using various technologies as they've developed. And in essence, it provides an opportunity to create purposeful engagement to drive a specific outcome. And engagement design is most powerful when it's hinged to a realism that enables a person to connect their consciousness to a real-life event or experience or cognitive exercise. And in essence, by doing that, you can create an emotional connection that will affect values development, learning, experience, decision-making, critical thinking, all sorts of things. And when you then design well, you can start anticipating the reactions that you might get and drive them towards purposeful means, so that you have, for example, an AR device that provides data in a predictive way to how someone would want to operate in an operational environment. In essence, we as human beings learn best when we make mistakes. And if we can bring that mistake generation and exercise experience into a simulated environment that is a highly representative of real life, I learn much like I do in real life in a concentrated way and in a purposeful way. So it's a really excellent application of the penultimate design exercise to really make the most of these technologies, because they do offer you so much.
Deloitte was working with a prominent children's hospital. Would you give me a little bit more about this sort of exploratory, immersive experience?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited about this. So with the hospital you mentioned, the neurosurgery department, lead neurosurgeon, is very innovative, and he wants to make the best experience for his patients, and that includes both pre, post, and intra during the surgical environment. So we have worked with him in a couple of facets to build sort of a roadmap for how all that occurs in that continuum can be assisted, replaced, and or benefited by using AR or VR technologies. We built an initial product that would be used by surgical teams who would need to work in a collaborative fashion using a 3D manifestation of what is now mostly 2D data, MRI, CAT scan imagery, so that the surgical team who currently develops their surgical plan, where do we make the incision and how deep do we go and what's our margins for the surgery, and they can start not doing it on paper like they do now and start doing it in a virtual manner. They can all see it, the nurses, the assisting surgeons, and perform the surgery in a virtual realm. And so they are all practiced and have visualized in real life what that actual procedure might look like. So there's less uncertainty, there's more confidence, and a greater success rate.
Caitlin, I'm going to throw it over to you. Having worked with multiple exponential technologies, how do clients build these new business models with immersive experiences and, of course, build new solutions?
First of all, they have to have a high-level understanding of the technology itself. And this is such a new space that many people don't necessarily know the differentiation between the different technologies. So, we say like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, 360 video, and immersive. Those are all different components of what we eventually title as digital reality. For example, virtual reality is you're literally in the environment, you're immersed in it. You can't see your true environment because you're in a simulated environment. With augmented reality, that's overlaying digitally created content in the user's real-world environment. And then there's a mixed reality, which is a bit of an in-between, where it's blending the digital content into that real world. 360 video is, using actual video footage to immerse you into an environment. And then, of course, immersive experiences, you can think of like simulators, for example, where it's creating this multi-sensory digital experience. And so just understanding the basics of this technology set will help people to identify where they need to build a use case and where they can best address the problems that they're having. So that would go into the second part, which is identifying the problems that will help a client's customers the best. So, who is the customer? Is the customer the consumer? Is it an employee? Is it another business? What is that purposeful engagement that's going to yield a desired outcome? And once you have identified that, you can go into listing the problems out by what is truly important, which are going to deliver the greatest value and the greatest return on investment. How are you going to sell it to your boss so that you can go and build the solution? And then once you have identified the best use cases and you've sold it to the boss, you're going to get that return on investment. You can start the piloting phase where we say you start small and you scale fast. And so as you are going through these iterative processes, then you're incorporating and tweaking the solution based on the lessons you're learning as you go, and you scale through the enterprise. And basically through an enterprise scaling methodology, you can make sure everyone is taking advantage of the solution and the technology.
We view digital reality as all things virtual, augmented, or mixed reality. But we also included 360 and immersive because we want to have the widest possible tent. We feel that in the enterprise, the use of AR and MR is going to be probably much, much larger and be able to drive much bigger savings and much greater revenue opportunities.
I think it would be easier for me to explain digital reality versus mixed reality. I could just see my boss looking at me like, okay, so what are you talking about? I'm more mixed up. There's so many areas. I mean, if I think about 360, I saw this really cool version of that of a concert I wasn't able to go to, and suddenly I'm on stage, and suddenly I'm seeing the bass player, and I'm seeing the singer, and that's a really cool, very exciting space.
So we're getting to the holiday seasons, and something I'm really excited about is going home. My grandma, she's over 90 years old. She can't move very well. She rarely gets out of the house. She's always wanted to go to Egypt. And so one of my plans for her is to actually get one of the Google Cardboards loaded up with an Egyptian scene and actually put her in Egypt where she could never see it and experience that as close as she can get to that travel experience.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting, and it completely opens up the way that we solve the world, the way that we involve ourselves in the world. You're listening to User Friendly, Deloitte's newest podcast on emerging trends in tech, media, and telecom and how those trends impact your business. This is the final episode in our first season, but we'll be back in January broadcasting live from one of the biggest conferences in the world. Want to know more? We'll fill you in at the end of this episode. All right, let's get back to conversation with Tony, Alan, and Caitlin on digital reality. Caitlin, it sounds like the technology, of course, is getting more natural, and one might more say, user-friendly. So tell me about some of the examples you're excited about.
First of all, I'm excited to get my posture back because right now, looking at my phone, it's killing my neck. Sitting down on a computer, it's killing my back. I'm not that old yet, and I'm having lower back ache. So having this new technology that enables us to be hands-free and be upright is super exciting. I'm sure all of our doctors are going to be happy about that. As Alan was explaining earlier, we have a new way to interface with the world around us. This is going to be hands-free using gestures to click options in the air. It's interesting because with the technology evolution, we kind of drove ourselves apart from each other. Everyone's now behind a computer writing emails, with texting. People talk more via text to their colleagues than actually talking to them in person. And so this technology has the capacity to almost rehumanize the workplace and bringing everyone together so that we are engaging once again with each other. And then the only thing that's truly missing is that, true physical presence, but you'll have that experience of presence still available to you. Just making things easier for a day-to-day life and for customer engagement and employee engagement.
Yeah, I like that reference, Caitlin, of rehumanizing or humanizing the experience. Tony, what are some of the challenges that businesses face integrating digital reality?
It's new. It's different. We're not quite sure how to apply it. We need new technology. The technology is changing constantly. We don't want to invest too greatly in something that will change significantly. So there's a little apprehension about how to do this. What would help people overcome their apprehension for wearing something that they don't ordinarily wear in their normal work life, or just getting out of their normal day-to-day experiences, which change is always difficult for people, and some things that, if they're not providing tremendous value, can be seen as an impediment. So I think making sure that you are presenting in a kind of a change management manner your integration of the technology, like describe and build ownership for the product. So we're working with an organization that has a large truck driving workforce, and you wouldn't think are quick adopters, but I think once we were doing some descriptions of what we would do and the value that it would provide to them, they very quickly not only embraced it, but saw additional benefits to things like, oh, my grandkids are going to feel like I'm really cool now because I do this. So there's some good things. I think you just lean to start with the business value and demonstrate that that's well worth any of the inconveniences they might perceive to be in place for using. And suddenly things can be overcome.
Yeah, I like how you're pointing out to sort of cool factor, right? Because there's one thing about putting it on your face, right, in the virtual reality. And now you're talking about a truck driver. Somehow I'm having a little bit of a challenge sort of visualizing those two put together. But to your point, it's all in how you're interacting, right, with this client, like understanding their culture, language, really fundamentally thinking about design prior to, again, putting something on their face.
Absolutely, and just understanding how someone interacts with technology in general is an important part of it.
Alan, Deloitte has reported that more than 150 companies are currently testing digital reality within different arms of the business. Tell us what industries are ahead of the game and what's the most popular use of this technology.
I was at a conference this week, and there was over 200 individual companies in attendance, all looking at VR and AR just in the sports and entertainment space. So I think that number is just growing exponentially at the moment. But the areas that we are finding a lot of interest in, Tony's mentioned a couple of them with interest from medical areas, as well as a lot of folks in both manufacturing and transportation. But I've mentioned sports and entertainment, a lot of interest in that area.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about being able to go to a concert in 360. Any kind of event like atmosphere. You have the VR component to allow you to sell or buy virtual tickets to attend and watch the game or watch the concert in a 360 immersive way. Also, at the actual game itself, there's going to be a lot of new AR and MR applications that you're going to be able to download, especially with the next generation of cell phones and smartphones coming out, which have got AR and MR capabilities built into them. We're also finding a lot of interest from any organization that has a field services force, so any of the telcos, any of the oil and gas or power and utilities, which have very large groups of people going out into the field trying to repair stuff. One of our clients, the number was over 90% of all of the field engineers do not have the right information or cannot fix the equipment the first time that they send a truck roll out. So being able to provide them with that kind of information, that kind of data live, either with See What I See or with object recognition so that it can automatically give you the directions, is going to be a huge saving.
Yeah, and so as the price point drops for AR, VR, do interactions in the workplace change dynamically? Where do they save when they bring in AR, VR, and where do they increase their revenue exponentially?
So just on the telco example, what we found is we went out to our client, sat down with them, and helped them generate over 50 different use cases that they could be looking at. We helped then stack rank them, so which ones were going to be affordable, which one the technology existed today, which one was going to maximize the benefits back to them, whether it was, in time savings, in cost savings, or other ones of their kind of key KPIs and their key metrics. We then were able to help drive what we thought those kind of order of magnitude savings would be. And by the end of the project, built out the roadmap, built out the business case, we were able to show that with field engineering and adopting AR and MR technologies, we could generate somewhere between $70 and $90 million worth of cost avoidance over the next 5 years. So a huge return on the investment. The return on investment was about 1.2 years. So again, this very dramatic, very real savings that they would be able to see just from using in one area of their business.
Tony, with all of these improvements on the horizon, how do you think digital reality might change or replace other technologies?
I think I start at the fundamental level of, just the bare bones technology. And I think Alan said it nicely when he described the fourth transformation, in terms of the input and interaction with technology will change dramatically. And so, I can see eventually a lot of what we currently do with PCs and even phones to some degree, changing dramatically and going through either headsets or some other what's going to happen in a year, who knows, in terms of technology. It keeps changing very rapidly. I think more broadly, though, I think you need to start saying what's it going to replace in terms of how we work, what our workplace looks like, how we select people to do certain jobs. And I think that once you start thinking in those terms, you start thinking about the experiences that people will have to make better decisions. We're working with a bunch of industries where the ability to access and select amongst a wealth of data that is currently available is not only it's a barrier because there's too much stuff available. If you now have an ability to have a field of view that enables you to organize and store and sort data in real time in a kind of a physical manipulation manner, like you'd have on a big table, for example, in a more literal sense, you can really do a lot with data analytics and the experiences of the data. You can actually do test scenarios and like in supply chain, for example, we have a customer now talking about where we let them use an experience to test out how manipulations and changes and discrete decisions change the outcome of their supply chain, delays and what have you. So it's going to be much more than just the technology. It's going to be up and down the business environment, the human interaction, everything.
Final question for you, Caitlin. For businesses who have not yet implemented digital reality, what would you say is the first thing to consider when making digital reality a reality?
Making sure that you're identifying exactly what the pain points are, but making sure that those are areas that you can drive value and have a return on investment. Because if you don't get that return, then it's going to be very challenging to implement this technology.
Digital reality is shifting productivity, collaboration, and workflow. It'll be interesting to see this field grow. I want to thank Alan Cook, Tony DeMarinis, and Caitlin Kutzer for joining us on Deloitte's User Friendly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
That wraps up today's episode of User Friendly, your go-to podcast to navigate new trends in tech, media, and telecom. However, we will not be gone for long. Tune in January 9th, 10th, and 11th as user-friendly guest host Hanish Patel goes on the air live from the 2018 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Hanish will be on site at the show, interviewing Deloitte colleagues and surprise guests on everything that they're seeing at CES. We'll then be back again in February with Season 2, covering everything from artificial intelligence to the future of home entertainment. I'm Heidi Rataj, and from all of us at User Friendly, thank you. See you in 2018.